Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Samantha Caruth. I'm the Associate Director for Family Engagement, and we're so excited to have you all join us for a wonderful webinar on an important topic. I'm going to kick off to my wonderful colleague, Shirlene McDonald.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you again for joining us. I am Shirlene McDonald. I'm a director in the financial aid office here at AU. And I believe most of you are veterans in going through this filing the FAFSA. So I'm really going to take this opportunity to give an overview of this is what the FAFSA looks like this year. I will show you an example of the different screens that you will encounter when filing the FAFSA for 25-26. And it should look extremely familiar because nothing has changed from 24-25. So that is the benefit. They haven't changed any information or requested anything different than what you needed to do last year. So this is really just a refresher, hopefully for most of you, and that hopefully this will be useful and helpful. I am going to go through the slides fairly quickly, simply because there are so many. But like, as I mentioned before, the information is the same as the previous year. So I'm going to jump right on in and let you know that the place where you should go to file the FAFSA is studentaid.gov. Okay. And on that page, on the top header, it says FAFSA form. You click on the drop-down menu, and it will take you to this FAFSA landing page where it says the 25-26 FAFSA form is now available. That is the form that you want to complete. It is the very first option on the left on the main page. That's the form that you want to go ahead and complete for the upcoming academic year. Now, all students last year should have gotten an FSA ID. This FSA ID is good for 10 years. So if you forget it, it's fine. You'll click on the forget my password or forget my username. If they created a security question, it will ask, and then within a half an hour, they'll provide you with the information you need to continue on and complete the application. Now, the very first thing that I will encourage all families to do, even though the FAFSA will give an option to file it either as a student or parent, have the student start the application. We've encountered way too many issues when the parent first starts the application and then tries to invite the student to complete it. It doesn't match. There's all kinds of issues. And so this is a pro tip for you. Have the student start the application first. Once they've completed their part, there'll be a section where they put your email address as the parent or contributor, and it will be sent to you from the Department of Education. It won't say FAFSA, it'll say from the Department of Education, your student has indicated that you are a contributor. That's the language that's used in that email. So once you get on this page, select student. Their tutorials, there's actually 4 slides that they give you, introducing what the FAFSA is, telling you what you'll need, telling you the process. I'm not going to show you those particular slides, but if you want an overview, if you want to take the time to review the short clips that they have, it's really helpful, but it's not necessary. You can simply click continue and it'll take you to the next slides where you will actually begin to file the form. Great news is most of the information will be pre-populated. Why? Because you did it last year. And so the student's information, the date of birth, even their social, all of that will be there. The student will verify all of that information. And once they verify that information, it's going to ask for the legal state of residence because that could have changed in the previous year. You just indicate your legal state. From there, they're going to provide their consent to have the Department of Education ask the Internal Revenue Service if the student, 1, filed a tax return in the 2023 calendar year, because that's the year in which we're talking about. That's the year in which they're going to look for all of your tax information. So 2023. Whether the student filed, didn't file, doesn't matter. They still need the student's consent to say, ask the IRS whether or not I filed, and if I did file, to extract the information and populate the free application for federal student aid. That's what this whole process is now entails, because when the FAFSA changed, that was the major change. Now students must consent in order for them to be able to complete the FAFSA form. So once they do that, and again, whether they have earnings, didn't have earnings, they still need to consent. They'll give additional information about what the approval entails. From there, they'll ask, hey, do you want to share with us your personal circumstances, right? Meaning, are you married? Are you still in school? What year are you? Then they'll go on to say, do you fit any one of these categories to determine whether or not you're still a dependent on your parents? And I'll be very honest with you, unless they're in the military, a veteran, married, or deemed through either their school or social services to have been homeless or at risk of homelessness, they're going to be considered your dependent. So for most families, they question, they're like, well, what if they earn all of their money? And what if they're not 24, married, or fall into a graduate student, or fall into those other categories that I just mentioned, they are still considered your dependent. And should most people fall in this category, they click none of these apply. So then this is the question about, were you homeless in 2023? There's also a section that says, look, if you have extenuating circumstances that you want the school to be aware of, please indicate whether or not any one of the experiences that they've indicated on the slide applies. For the vast majority of students and families, that isn't the case, and you'd indicate no and click continue. So there are certain families that, unfortunately, the contributor refuses to provide any information in support of the student's application. In such cases, unfortunately, the federal government says that's okay. If you fail to provide information on your contributor, we'll give you our non-need-based loan for most students. The maximum amount that they're going to be eligible to receive in this loan is $7,000, which, as you know, is a drop in the bucket in the overall cost. The government does not acknowledge unwillingness to pay as a criteria which excludes the student or parent from having to provide this information. So I tell my families all the time, look, it costs you nothing to provide the information. It doesn't put you on the hook necessarily for funding the education, but it does give your student an opportunity to receive full consideration for all aid that they may be eligible to receive. So on this slide, you indicate no and click continue. Then they're going to ask for information about the student's parents. And the student would indicate the parent's information. So this would be, the social security number for both parents if they're married. And if the parents are not married, and this is super important, the parents are not married. The major change from previous years to last year and this year are that the government is asking for the parent that provides the most financial support. Doesn't matter which parent the student lives with. It matters who's providing the greatest support. In other words, say the student lives with the father, but the mother is providing the majority of the student's financial support through child support. The mother would be the one that would file the FAFSA form. Okay, so it's the parent that provides the most financial support. It's going to ask some information about the student's demographics, meaning, are they a US citizen? And this is important. They do collect data on the parent's highest educational attainment. And the reason for that is because if you indicate that you want your information to be sent to state agencies, some will use this information to determine if a student is eligible for additional funding, just based on the fact that they would be considered a first generation in college student. Then they're going to ask, hey, what type of certificate or diploma did the student complete in order to make them eligible to receive federal funding? And so you'd indicate the high school. They'll ask specifically which high school the student attended. It should already be pre-populated since the majority of you have completed this last year. Then it's going to go on to the student's finance section. Here, it's going to ask specifically, hey, did the student receive, these types of benefits? And for most people, it's going to be 0. The next, it's going to say how much money and assets does the student have in their checking account, if they have businesses or investments. Then it's going to say, which college do you want us to send this information? You notice you're not putting any financial information. If the student filed with the IRS, it's going to extract that information from the IRS and input it into the FAFSA for you, thereby hopefully mitigating any errors that may occur when you're manually inputting the information. And then once the student indicates where they want the information to be sent, they'll ask the student to review the information before signing their section and indicating where they want the information to be sent. So here, in this particular example, the parents are married, and so she's sending the information to both parents because they did not file married filing jointly. If you filed any other status other than married filing jointly, then the 2 contributors that have to be listed are both parents. If you are in a divorced situation, then it is the parent who's providing the most financial support. That would be the contributor that the student would send the information to, just that parent. Now, if you're in a situation where you're married, but you filed a status other than married filing jointly, you'd put both on there. But if you are in a married situation, you file jointly, then only one parent has to have the form sent to them. So hopefully that's clear. If you filed married filing jointly, it's one parent that the information would be sent to. That parent has to have an FSA ID in order to be able to provide consent. But if there's any other status, other than if you're filing married with any other status, head of household, et cetera, you, the student will need to submit the form not only to one parent, but the 2 parents that are in the household. In a divorced or separated situation, then the student has to list the parent who provides the greatest financial support. All right, didn't mean to belabor that point, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understood, because that's where most questions arise. The student signs their part, it'll say, congratulations, you've completed your part. And then it says, the student, agree to the terms outlined. They'll hit submit, and they'll get a congratulations, you're almost there, you've done your part. We're sending an email to both of the contributors or parents that you've indicated that you want this information to go to, so that they can complete their part. And this is where we are right here. You'll see that they're instructing the student, and you'll also get this email to check your email. The email is going to come from the Department of Education saying that you need to complete the 25-26 FAFSA for your dependent child. Okay, so, and this is a sample of what the communication will look like from the Department of Education. From there, you click on the invitation. It will take you to this login page. You, as the parent, would put in your information so that you can access the parent portion or contributor portion of your child's or your student's FAFSA. There you go. It will link. It'll say, here it is. You are providing information for this current active FAFSA. Once they've linked you to your student, it'll provide you with information on how to complete the form. Then they're going to verify your identity just as they verified the student's identity. It'll ask for the permanent mailing address, just like the student. It will then take you to your consent saying, hey, do you give us permission to ask the IRS for your tax data? If you fail to provide consent, this form will not be complete, and we will not get the information we need at AU in order to determine your student's eligibility for aid. So if you fail to provide consent, if you say no, doesn't matter that the student, their part, this information will be incomplete, and we will not have sufficient information to determine your student's eligibility for aid. So it will ask you, do you consent to the following? You indicate yes. And then from there, it's going to ask about your demographic information. It's going to ask whether or not you're single, married, so your marital status, the legal state of residence. Then it's going to ask about finances, such as the pieces that aren't necessarily available through the tax transcript. And so it's going to ask, do any of the following apply for the 23, for the 23 calendar year? Then you would indicate, and I'm so sorry, this is, it should say for the 23 joint tax return, like, did you file one? And in this case, they're going to say, yes, this year they filed a joint return. The family size, it's going to say how many people are in your household. So you would count everybody in the household plus the dependent student. And it'll say parent 1, parent 2, and the student here. Number in college, they still ask, even though they don't take into consideration and calculate, necessarily having more than one in college at the same time. At AU, we do, but the federal government no longer does. You're going to consent to having the 23 tax return information supplied. And then it'll ask specifically around any child support received, the business, any businesses that you have, any money that you have in a checking savings account or in cash, and then anything about real estate. Then it's going to say, who's the other parent? You're going to verify that this is the other parent. And then from there, it's going to ask you to review the information. You're going to review the summary, and then you're going to sign it, right? And it says what needs to happen next. An email is going to be sent to the next contributing parent. They'll follow the exact same process that that first parent did. Click submit, and then the FAFSA form will be complete. So in this scenario that I did, the reason that the student had to send their FAFSA information to both parents is because both parents indicated that what they were married, filing a status other than filing jointly. If they had said we're married, filing jointly, then one parent would have completed the form and the whole process would have been complete. In this case, the family in the 2023 year filed a status that was not married, filing jointly, and therefore the student had to send it to both parents. Hopefully that clarifies it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Samantha. I know I've gone through this process incredibly quickly. I just wanted to make sure that we had sufficient time this evening in order to answer any questions that you may have about the process. I cannot guarantee that I can tell you anything beyond that. Yes, the Department of Education is still processing FAFSAs. Yes, there's funding that has been allocated for the 25-26 calendar academic year. Yes, we are continuing to anticipate that we're going to receive funding from the federal government based on, the student aid index that is calculated for the student based on the FAFSA application. So I wanted to get that out of the way up front to say we understand that there's some trepidation and that there may be some questions around what we know and how we are proceeding, and letting you know that we anticipate that we will receive federal funding. We have nothing that tells us otherwise. And so we are processing and we continue to receive FAFSA information. I'll tell you, we've already received thousands of applications already. And so they're being processed and we're receiving the information and awarding aid accordingly.
Thank you, Charlene. I wanted to invite folks to, if you have any questions, put them into the Q&A box, chat, and maybe Charlene can respond to them. So, oh, we've got one that come in. So this family is saying that there's been a change in their family. So sorry to hear one parent has passed. And so the 2023 tax return, as well as 2024, reflect that income. Now that has changed. Is there a way to explain about those new circumstances?
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry for your loss. We do have a process that we encourage our students and families. The information is up on the screen, and if you have your phone, you can use the QR code that will take you directly to our financial aid contact us page. Every single student has an assigned financial aid counselor to assist them, particularly those that are experiencing significant changes in their household. Please work with your assigned counselor who can assist you by amending the information that we receive. We will ask that you submit the application based on the 2023 year. It'll be the baseline information, at which point we'll work with you to update that baseline information to reflect your current circumstances.
Thank you for that, Charlene. We do have another question that's come in, and it's specifically not about need-based aid, but about merit aid. The family doesn't expect to get aid, but the need-based aid, but the student has a merit scholarship. Do they still need to file the FAFSA to get merit?
That's a great question. No, you do not. If you're simply interested in receiving merit funding, then you do not need to complete the free application for federal student aid. However, if you're interested in obtaining a federal parent loan, then you will need to complete the FAFSA in order to gain that eligibility.
Another question has come in. Is the FAFSA all I need to do, or is there another step to apply for financial
That's
aid?
the beauty of it. Once you've done it the first year, you simply need to file the FAFSA each subsequent year. There are no other forms that we require. We may ask for additional information to verify information if needed, but we'll only contact you after the FAFSA has been completed to ask you to submit that information.
Another question, and this is a family, one parent is a stay-at-home parent, and the says, I'm a stay-at-home mom. My husband, who's a stepfather, is a primary contributor. Would my students send the form to my husband even though he is not the biological parent?
Right.
How does that work?
So when you're married, then you are considered the student's household, and that is the contributor, right? So that would be the primary person that's providing the information on that FAFSA.
Another question, we have 2 students in college, but since the FAFSA changed last year, our SAI has doubled. Does AU automatically consider siblings in college, or should we ask our student to connect with the financial aid counselor to discuss?
You should connect with the financial aid counselor so that we can collect the information we need in order to make a determination as to how we can best assist you.
Thank you so much. We don't have any other questions coming in. It's because you've covered all of the really important and necessary topics. I also am a parent of a college student, so I have completed my FAFSA, so I can attest that it's an easy process, similar to last year, even though last year was new for all of us. We're more experienced this year, and it was pretty short and easy to complete. And we just, have to just move forward with the following steps, waiting for that return from the university. Yes.
Just so that you know, for our continuing students, the timeline for when you can anticipate your financial aid offer letter has changed. And the reason for that is because we need all of your grades to come in first. So all of the students' grades have to come in for both the fall and spring semester before we're able to assess the student's eligibility. Why? There's something that's called satisfactory academic progress, meaning we're going to check how the students did academically to make sure that they're still eligible for the aid that they've received. And so what we're going to do is we're going to verify that information once grades come in mid-May. So we don't begin our evaluation process until all grades have been reported and we're able to run that audit. So we then begin to release financial aid offer letters in June all the way up until the 1st of July, which is when the bill will be due. So we tell our students, all students that have completed the FAFSA, submitted the information that we've requested, if we requested information, and whose grades have been reported, will get a financial aid offer from us no later than the 1st of July.
So when is the FAFSA due? The question is about deadlines and how long roughly does the FAFSA take to be processed? And before
Absolutely.
AU
So
does their part.
for our continuing students, I tell you, May 1, it's always the 1st of May is our deadline. You'll be receiving notification from our partner offices as well, just reminding you of that deadline. Your student will receive a notification from our office as well. It'll be plastered all around the university on the buses, reminding students if you're receiving need-based aid, your deadline for the FAFSA is May 1. And the second question was?
Typically, how long does a FAFSA take to be processed?
Quite honestly, I cannot answer that question. Usually it takes 73 hours. And that has been the time frame that we've experienced, like as of, up until now. But we're finding it's taking slightly longer. But I tell my students and families, you meet the May 1 deadline, you won't have any issues. We will have that information well before we need to make a determination as to your eligibility.
And this question is, when's the FAFSA application open? I think it's open now, correct?
It is. It's open and available right now. I always used to say, oh, it'll be available by the 1st of October. And now I can't say that with any confidence because the last couple of years, it's been available in December. So I just tell my families, don't worry about it. It'll be available before our May 1 deadline. And when it does become available, we'll let you know as well.
This parent is wanted just to be sure because different universities have different processes. So at AU, the student is receiving merit aid using the GI Bill and yellow ribbon. Is it true that he does not need to complete the FAFSA since we don't
That is
want
correct.
loans?
That is absolutely
That
correct.
specific situation.
That is for yellow ribbon, because yellow ribbon is actually not through the Department of Education. It's through the VA. So the funding is coming directly from the VA. It bypasses the Department of Education's process completely.
Great questions. I learned a few aspects as well too. Thank you so much, Charlene. Thank you for leaving us with the slide so we know where to go next if we have questions about financial aid at AU. Any other last thought before we wrap up?
Not at all. Just heartfelt thank you to everyone. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We are here to help and look forward to assisting you throughout the academic year. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. And we will be posting the recording on the webinar's webpage in a few days if you want to share it with your student or have any questions. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.